guys. So today we will be talking about this ancient civilization that today bears this flag. Does anyone know what country has this modern day flag? Yes, Shannon.
Is it Greece?
Yes, it is Greece. So today we will be talking about ancient Greece though. So I'm going to give you guys two guided notes. But first, in your notebooks, I want you to write about 3 things that you might know about ancient Greece. They could be anything you want, and I'll give you guys 2 minutes to do that. Just let me know when you guys are ready, okay? And we can talk about it.
I'm ready.
Okay, Garrett, would you like to tell us what you wrote down?
Would you like all 3 of them?
Sure.
Okay. I wrote down Olympics, Homer, and the Iliad.
Great. What about you, Shannon?
All I put down was the Olympics.
Okay, so today we are going to cover the Olympics and Homer and the Iliad. That is in tomorrow's lesson, so we'll talk about them later. So let's just go over ancient Greece as a whole. So on this PowerPoint, I have a map of Greece. This is modern day Greece. In ancient times, it would have gone all the way up to here in Albania and Macedonia. So Greece is a peninsula on the Mediterranean Sea. Do you guys know what a peninsula is?
Isn't it on a body of a land that is covered with water? It's surrounded by water.
Yes, it is surrounded on water on 2 different sides. So it's still connected to this area, which is called the Balkan Peninsula. And in your guided notes, you will see that I wrote in little spaces for you guys to fill in from the notes from the PowerPoint, okay? So Greece is a peninsula in the Mediterranean Sea, which surrounds it on 3 sides, okay? And it is located in the southern eastern part of Europe, okay? So if you're looking at a map, it's right over in this area. So it is composed of the mainland and also thousands of small islands. So here, one of the biggest islands that it has is called Crete. And there's also little islands such as Rhodes. Santorini is one of the most popular destinations now. And there's also Samos and Naxos. Those are all in this area, which is in the Aegean Sea, in between Greece and Turkey, okay? Let me know when you guys fill in your guided notes. Ready? Mm-hmm. All right. So now we're going to go on to some more geography. So Greece is composed of different areas in the country around there. They'll have different types of terrain, but mostly Greece is made up of mountains. Mountainous terrain, very high, away from sea level. But also, Greece has the longest coastline in Europe because it stretches around 3 different parts. All right. The capital city of Greece is called Athens, which is home to about 10.1 million people, and it is the biggest city in Greece. And it has a very big port city connected to it called Piraeus. And that's where a lot of cruise ships and stuff go out of in the modern day, but we're talking about ancient Greece. All right. So one of the things that ancient Greece was most well known for was democracy. So they had their own form of democracy, which was called Athenian democracy, and it was one of the first forms of self-rule in ancient times. Democracy is an idea that citizens of a country take role in government and manage it through elected officials. So basically, how I said it's self-ruled and the citizens of a country take your role in government, it's more like they would go vote for someone who they would want in government that would represent them. So how we do in America, we go vote for something that we want to be put in American governmental office. So how we just voted for the President of the United States. We use a form of democracy that comes from the ancient Greeks. So in the year 507 BCE, which means before Common Era, a man named Cleisthenes introduced the system to the Athenian people. And at this time, only men could vote. Not women couldn't vote, slaves could not vote, people who weren't a citizen of a city-state could not vote in elections. Okay?
How many countries use democracy?
That is a great question. So on the next slide, I wrote that there are around 75 countries that actually use a form of Athenian democracy today. And obviously over time, it's been a few thousand years, over time it would change and form into new things that would fit into the government that would help your country. So in America, we use a different kind of democracy, but it's still based off of Athenian democracy. So why is democracy important? Do you have any ideas of why you would think democracy would be important?
Democracy is important because I think that you get to use your voice as a citizen.
That is so good. Great job. So yeah, you're right. You're totally right. It gives you a voice in government. You elect an official that you think is going to help you. So that's what they did in Athens and in Greece. All right. So next we're going to move on to Greek philosophers. Do you know what a philosopher is? Or could you tell me if you have any idea?
They made up ideas about things, I guess. I don't really know.
Okay, so you're on the right track. So philosophers are men, they would theorize about things. They would talk about ideas of morality and ethics. And these men would be called philosophers, and eventually some of them would be scholars who would write a lot of books and stuff about what they found. So philosophers would kind of think about more obscure kind of things, like thinking about thought, kind of. Do you understand what I'm saying? Thinking about things that are very kind of otherworldly, I would consider. So these men, they would talk about, what is nature? And what is it like to be a human? Kind of deep-rooted thoughts that you would have to seek inside yourself to find. So some of the most famous philosophers that we know in modern times would be Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. And in the slide, in this photo, this is Aristotle and this is Plato. And Aristotle, he wanted to learn more about nature and the land, and he wanted to know more about space and what life is like in more of a thought process that is more of religious, I guess.
Yeah.
So another philosopher is Pythagoras. And Pythagoras was a mathematician who invented the Pythagorean theorem.
Oh, I'm learning that in math class.
Oh, are you really? That's awesome. Yeah, so he invented his Pythagorean theorem, and his formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And like you said, you're learning about that in class. Okay, so now we're going to move on to art and architecture. And art and architecture is, from ancient Greece, is actually one of the most sought after and well-known things that Greece has to offer. When people go to Greece, they always want to go see the Parthenon. And the Parthenon is one of the biggest buildings it was a temple for one of the Greek goddesses, Athena, which is the patron god of Athens. And that temple was made for her, and it's on one of the highest hills in Athens. And it actually uses the Pythagorean theorem to count up the columns there. And also at the Parthenon, they used it for governmental reasons. So if they had to have, as I said, in the democracy that they just made, they would go up to the Parthenon and talk about government and what they needed to do to fix their government, and have meetings with even townspeople and other elected officials. So in the modern day, we can still see Greek influence in government buildings. Have you ever seen a picture of the United States Capitol?
Yeah.
So it has columns all around it, and those are an attribute from Greek architecture.
Oh. Are there any Greek artists that I would know?
So we don't really know many Greek artists like how we know modern day, like Picasso and stuff. But one of the most famous, his name was Polyclitus. And Polyclitus was a sculptor, and he sculpted some of the most famous sculptors of like life-size men. And so that's one of the most, I would say, famous ones. So here in this slide, here's some photos of art and architecture. So here's the Parthenon that I was just talking about. This is where they would have government meetings, and it was a temple for Athena. And this is another section of it. And how I said there was pots and vessels that they would use in ancient Greece, and just as decorations in the home. Here's one, and there's just people on it. I know this is Athena on here, and it would just usually depict a meeting of sort or something that happened. And this one would be made out of marble. So they would carve out of marble hundreds and thousands of hours to create something that beautiful. All right. And the last thing that we're going to talk about is the Olympics. So the Olympics actually originated in ancient Greece in the year 776 BCE. And do you know why the games were held?
No, I don't.
Okay, so the games were held in the name of the king of the gods, and the king of the gods was Zeus. So they would kind of hold the Olympics, because they wanted to be in favor of the king of the gods. He ruled all of the gods. So we know Olympics today as Summer Olympics. You know, they have swimming and bicycling and volleyball, and they also have Winter Olympics, which they would have bobsled and skiing and snowboarding. But back in ancient Greece, they only had 9 main events. And these 9 events would consist of boxing, wrestling, running, pankration, which is a combination of boxing and wrestling, chariot racing, jumping, javelin, and discus throwing. So only men could compete at this time, and they would compete with other city-states, because at this time Greece was not a unified country. It just consisted of little city-states, or like in modern times we can consider it like your town competing against the town that lives next to you. Do you see what? So now I'm going to show you a little video. It's around 4 minutes long. That just gives a better a better knowledge of the Olympics. All right. Here's an ad. All right.
Torch burns once more with the pomp of the ages.
right. So that was the little video I just wanted to show you on the Olympics. Do you guys have any questions about it?
Yeah, I think you said it already, but I think I missed it.
Of
I
course.
don't remember, when was the first Olympic Games?
776 BCE. So that's before Common Era. So
Oh,
that means
okay.
before the life of Christ, basically. He
Mhm.
was born in the year 0, so way before then.
Oh, okay.
All right. So now that we've learned the basics of ancient Greece, I just want to go over one more time. Do we have any more questions?
No, I think I'm okay.
Okay, so let's just pull it all together. So today we learned about geography, democracy, philosophers, art, architecture, and the Olympics. And these are just some of the very basic things that come from ancient Greece that we now know in our modern day. And in the next lesson, we're going to go over it a little bit more deeper and learn about Greek gods, goddesses, and other philosophers and scholars. But I just wanted to give you guys a little brief overview. So now I want you guys, on the back of your guided notes, there is a little 5-page question. 5-question page of some questions I have about what we learned in the lesson today. And it's not going to be graded. I just want you to answer it as best as you can. And I want you to rip it off and give it to me on your way out of the door. And I'm going to give you about 5 minutes for that, okay? If you have any questions, just ask me, okay? All right. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day and keep those guided notes so you can have them for next lesson, all right?
All right, have a nice
All right.
day.
Thanks.